Now, we have two presenters who are humorous naturally. And they are going to tell us how we can learn to be humorous too. Let me bring our two presenters, Arti Kumari, competent communicator, District 27 Humorous Speech champion, and Jim Chamberlin, competent Toastmaster, competent leader, multiple-time district champion.
It's really a pleasure to be here for Arti and I this evening. And congratulations to the brigade for giving a very, very timely session on concepts, not only how to put them together, but how to compete in them. Arti and I are going to handle that second half of that topic tonight. Both of us have competed successfully at the district level. And probably, I'm guessing you came here to hear Arti's winning speech from District 27 last year. Let me just first ask about you. How many of you have heard Arti before? Okay, not quite half. How many of you have heard me before? Okay, fewer. How many of you have competed in a contest before? Wow, fantastic. And how many of you are going to compete this fall in a humorous contest? Very good. Very good. Well, it's my fervent hope that you'll have a wonderful time tonight. I emphasize fun, I emphasize participation, and I also fervently hope that you'll pick up one or two things that will help you deliver a better product when you yourself compete. I'm going to cut to the chase here and introduce Arti to give her District 27 first place winning humorous speech contest. And I'm going to do so in the format of a contest master. That is to introduce her name, give her name, the speech title, repeat the speech title, and then her name, and she will come up, and away we go. This will be as near as we can come to contest venue and situation, and we have our timer at the back who's going to give the standard timing sequence. Arti Kumari, trouble always finds me. Trouble always finds me. Arti Kumari.
Somehow, trouble always finds me. And I don't understand, because I'm a very nice person. It's like trouble god is standing on a cloud, searching for me. Ah, there is Arti! Fellow Toastmasters, let me give you 3 examples how trouble finds me. I was 8, and my parents would only let me ride the kids' bike. You know the one with 2 little training wheels? I hate it, because I always wanted to ride the big bike, my dad's bike. One day I had my chance. My dad was out of town, and his bike was on the porch. It was hard. But I took the bike down to the road and started. My dream was becoming true. I was riding my dad's bike. Suddenly, trouble god found me. got my first job. My company has a summer event and organized a dodgeball game for fun. That day, I wore my favorite shoes. They were all snow white with pink stripes. Whenever I wore them, I felt like a princess. I did not want my shoes to get dirty, so I took them off and put them aside. The game began. And trouble God found me again. One of my co-workers threw a ball which hit my ankle. I twisted my leg and hit the ground. I got so scared that I went back and put my princess shoes on again. That co-worker took me to the hospital where doctor had to cut off my favorite shoes as my foot was way too swollen. He looked at his x-ray, broken ankle. I looked at him. I don't know how. Trouble always finds me. I was 28 and I came to the US. This time I tried to stay out of all possible troubles. I swear, I tried. I got my job and saved every penny to buy my first car. I was so proud. First time, when I drove my new car on I-95 at night in a big snowstorm, what could possibly go wrong? And trouble God found me again. I crashed my car into an 18-wheeler. My car and I slid under me. They barely got me out. My car was all crashed. The next thing I remember, I was inside the ambulance and a very tall police officer was standing next to me. He was so cute. Maybe he won't give me the ticket. Maybe he won't give me the ticket. But he did. 3-point ticket. My car is totaled. It's dark and snowy. I'm 15 miles away from my home. I looked at that cute police officer. I don't know why trouble always finds me. Fellow Toastmasters, as you can see, I lived through each time when trouble found me. After my bike accident, my parents bought me a wheel-to-wheel bike of my size. Not bad, right? After I broke my ankle, you remember the guy who hit me and took me to the hospital? Is today my husband. Not bad at all. Thanks, Prashant, for breaking my ankle. Just don't do it again. And after the car crash, insurance company gave me $3,221 more than what I had actually spent on my car. So, I made money on my accident. How about that? Yes, trouble always finds me. But when trouble finds me, I turn trouble into triumph.
We will now have 1 minute of silence for the judges' mark and rally. I was talking to Arti before this, and this is the first time that she has given that speech since last November or whatever it was, and I thought it was better tonight than it was that night. And now, for what you've all been waiting for, Arti's going to introduce me, and I'm going to give my speech for her for the first time that she's ever.
Thank you. So the next speech title is, How Lucky Can a Guy Get? Jim Chamberlin.
rude. That night, she invited me out on a date. She invited me out on her boat. Fellow Toastmasters! How lucky can a guy get? That weekend, I drove my pickup down to Springfield, where she lived, and I brought with me a big bottle of champagne to christen that boat in what I hope would be an incredible new relationship. She took that big bottle of champagne and she put it away for some other time and some other guy. And her boat turned out to be a 6-foot inflatable raft. We put a 6-foot inflatable raft in the back of my pickup and we went to Burke Lake, about 15 minutes away. And when we got to Burke Lake, it quickly became apparent why she had invited me on this date. She invited me to blow up the raft. Which I did. I was getting dizzy. I was getting a bit wobbly, but something was wrong, something was missing. Oh no, I forgot to bring the little valve caps.
Oh.
So we put the raft back to back, pick up, went back to Springfield. She rummaged around her garage. She found the little tiny valve caps, and we returned to Burke Lake, where I blew up her boat for the second time. I was even more dizzy. Frankly, this wasn't the kind of heavy breathing I had in mind. So, we had the boat, and we were marching toward Burke Lake to launch the boat. And there in front of us, barring the way to Burke Lake, was Ranger Rick. You got lifeboat, life jackets? You need life jackets to take that baby in. Oh no, I forgot the life jackets. So we put the boat back in the back of her pickup, went back to Springfield. She rummaged around her garage. She found the 2 life jackets. And we returned once more to Burke Lake. And we were determined. We were invincible. And we finally launched our 6-foot inflatable raft. She wanted to row first, and that was fine with me. There were only just a few little problems. She was very coordinated. So, as she was rowing along, we would kind of row around in a circle one way, and then she would overcompensate. She would row around the other way, and then with every dip of the oar, she would splash me. First from one side, and then from the other side, and sometimes from both sides. And then the tip of the oars fell off and floated away. Oh no, what are we going to do now? I suggested, as quietly as I could, that we go get the top of the oar and get it while we still could. Wow. Finally, we reached the far end of the lake. It was a beautiful, beautiful night. It was late summer. The sun was going down behind the hills. And I noticed 3 things. I noticed the wind, the air, and the water, and they were all incredibly beautiful. And then from the far end of the lake came Ranger Rick's bullhorn. Sundown! All boats off the lake! Well, she rowed us over. It was fair as fair. It's my turn to row us back. So I started rowing back, and I quickly became aware of 3 things. The wind, the air, and the water. They were all terrible. First, the wind. I was rowing in that direction. The wind was blowing us in that direction. Second, air. Air was leaking out of our Third, the water. Water was coming up, drenching me from the waist down. I quickly realized that we were in deep water. So I started rowing back to the right. Off to my right, there was a group of ducks. They were coming up alongside of the 6-foot inflatable raft, and they were laughing their heads. I've never seen anything like that in their lives. And then off to the left, there were some loons. Now, if you've ever seen a loon in the water, they're very low in the water, kind of like a submarine, and their necks are kind of like the periscope on a submarine, and I realized with increasing alarm that I was looking up. There's the loon's necks. Well, I went back to work. I was rowing. And then a miracle happened. I made it back. We got up to the dock, got the boat out of the water, went back to my pickup, put it back in the back of the pickup. She got in her side, I got in my side, and I had an idea. It was not a good idea, but I deserve a kiss. After all I'd been through, we lived through it, I wanted a kiss. And so, I leaned over, closed my eyes, I puckered my lips, and she shoved a cookie into my mouth. It was a coconut cream Girl Scout cookie. I hate coconut cream Girl Scout cookies! Fellow Toastmasters, how lucky can a guy get? Okay, we have a handout. We didn't want to distract you with a handout during the speeches, but we have a handout. There are 50 copies, and there are 50 of you. So if you all just take one, you should have enough. I'd like to introduce the concept of humor and simplify it, perhaps oversimplify it for you by saying that humor is actually very simple. There are only two things you have to worry about for humor. One is surprise, to create an expectation that something will happen, and then you deny that expectation. If you're on a train and you think you're going to Cleveland, no, you think you're going to Cincinnati, the train arrives and you get off and you're in Cleveland, that's a denial of the expectation of Cincinnati. And so what you are constantly doing for humor to be effective is to create an expectation and then deny that expectation. Now the second thing to keep in mind, second key to humor is when terrible things happen to you. When terrible things happen to somebody else, well, say for instance, if I was to tell a speech about terrible things happening to somebody else, that would be mean-spirited. That wouldn't be funny. It would be mean-spirited. It wouldn't be funny. But if I tell terrible things that have happened to me, that's funny. Why is it funny? Because it didn't happen to you. It happened to me. So, I gave the speech that you heard, or I gave the presentation that you had at Nova, Northern Virginia Toastmasters a year ago. And shortly after, the president of that club, a young woman named Arti Kumari, called me up and she said, "Would you mentor me? I'd like to enter the club's humorous contest." I said, "Sure, I'd be happy to." And then she said, "I have no idea what I'm going to talk about because nothing funny ever happens to me." I said, "Perfect. Go home and think of the 4 or 5 worst days of your life and sit with them until you can start to see the humor in those 4 or 5 worst days of your life, and write a speech about it." And to her everlasting credit, she she did just that. In the next 10 days, I got a draft of that speech that she gave, chronicling, I think, 4 of the worst days of her life. We kicked out one of them, and we started playing and rewriting, and she wound up with an incredibly beautiful, funny speech about the terrible things that happened to her and the surprises along the way. And I encouraged her, as I encourage each and every one of you, to dig deep into your personal experience, because those things have happened to you, and it's easier to memorize. Instead of memorizing, you can relive that speech just as it happened to you. And so, those are the 3 keys. Surprise, tell about something that's terrible that's happened to you, and use the research of your own life. Now, I have made some tips about how to prepare the speech, some topics to avoid, and some tips for day of. Some topics to avoid. You can read them for yourself. Tragedy, politics, drugs, drinking, fat, handicap, bodily function, sexism, racism, ethnic jokes. Each and every one of us have listened to, have heard, have laughed our heads off about these topics when they're not applying to us. But you want to avoid these topics in your speech because you risk alienating that one judge who might give you, who might deep six your competition. There's no doubting that these topics are funny, but you don't want to introduce them into your speech because you don't want to alienate the judging pool that you have. Just want to highlight a couple things for preparing speeches. Number 8, don't laugh at your own jokes, because that short circuits the humor. If I tell you that my own boat almost sank, that's short-circuiting the tragedy about my boat sinking that will cause you to laugh because it's a tragedy happening to me, not you. The second thing to keep in mind is to introduce the humor at the end. At the end of the sentence, the end of the paragraph. Why? Because you're setting an expectation and then denying it. You're setting an expectation in that sentence. And then the last word of the sentence is denying that expectation, introducing a word that's not expected. Same with the verb. And lastly, let me give you examples from both Arti's speech and my own. Get closure, emotional and rhetorical, by tying your conclusion to your introduction. The very title of Arti's speech, Trouble Always Finds Me, she repeated 3 times during her speech. How lucky can a guy get? You heard it 4 times. You heard it twice when the contest master introduces me. You heard it twice in my speech, once at the introduction, once at the conclusion. And with entirely different meaning. Oh, Toastmasters! How lucky can a guy get? Oh, Toastmasters! How lucky can a guy get? Same words, with an entirely different meaning. And that sears my identity as a contestant that day into the mind of the contest judge, because they heard it 4 times. It reinforced who you are and what you're talking about. Let's go to the next thing. Tips for actually competing. These are here because I have made these bad choices, and I've learned from them. Each of these, I can tell you stories that will curl your teeth about I did it the wrong way. So please benefit from my mistakes I once gave a speech and froze in the middle of it. Had no idea what the next thing was. Just things like that. Learn from my mistakes. Review the ballot. I didn't copy them for this handout, but you can really do a lot to perfect and improve your speech simply by looking at the ballot, imagining that you were a judge, looking at yourself. Oh boy. I don't have a whole lot of time. Obviously, don't use the lectern. Get away from the lectern so that your body can move freely and so that you can either back with your audience. Plan for an early conclusion, because the higher you go in the competition, the more laughs you'll get. The bigger the audience, the more laughs you'll get. And so, if you might get 5-minute pause for laughter at the club level, you might get 10 seconds or more laughter at the district level. So you have to adjust your presentation accordingly, and you have to know where you need to be when that green light goes on, where you need to be when the yellow light goes on, where you need to be when that red light goes on, and you need a path to sitting down. You need to know if I get into deep water here, what do I have? How can I cut so that I don't disqualify myself? The year that I won district, I qualified at the area level by 1 second. I was 7 minutes and 29 seconds. Well, this is easy. I came back the next year with a much better speech, and I disqualified myself by 1 second. I was 7 minutes and 31 seconds. 2 seconds made the difference between winning district and going home shamed that I thought I was above it. Anyway, I mentioned a few secret tips there. For those of you who nobody's left, but here are a couple secret tips that I will share with you and you only, and only tonight. Videotape yourself. When Arti won her contest, she sent me a videotape of herself that she had taken with her own video camera. And I wasn't there that night, but I was able to use that to critique her. She also videotaped herself at her area contest with the help of Tom Pfeiffer, who's helping us again this evening. Sometimes the district will have an archive of contest speeches from years before, and you can get that. Or you can go to YouTube, click in Toastmasters Humorous Speeches, and see what are they like. Second, that's actually the first two. Join an advanced club. It's important that you learn from people who've done it before and who know what they're talking about. For gays, an advanced club, obviously, there's a club in District 36 called Humorously Speaking. And there's Maryland Advanced. Usually, anyone who wants to win a district goes to Maryland Advanced and sits in on their meetings because they have an incredibly good evaluation. Fourth, when you go to a Toastmasters contest, what does everybody in the room share? They're all Toastmasters. And so somehow, if it's easy enough to do, mention Toastmasters in your speech. Why? Because it's what unifies all of us. Sometimes it's not easy to do, and if it's not easy to do, don't do it. But if you can somehow mention Toastmasters, it creates a warm, fuzzy commonality between you and your audience. And last on the red line here, realize that when you compete, you're competing the minute you walk in the room. People are looking at you, oh, he's competing. And so you have to act accordingly, and you also have an opportunity to use that minute of silence between the last speaker and your introduction. Say the contest masters there, you can come up and use that minute to gauge the audience. Judge, there's my buddy from my club. There's somebody I see who I know I can get a smile from if I really need some energy. So when the contest master introduces you, you are ready to go. You've already been facing that audience for a minute. They've gotten a degree of comfort with you and you with them. And so these are some tips that you can use to prepare your speech, to prepare for the competition, and to win in the humorous speech contest. Now, some of these are translatable to table topics and to tall tales as well. Some are more primarily for the humorous speech itself. But anyway, you've been a wonderful audience. What I'd like to do now is open it up for questions for Arti and myself, and also Diane. Any question is fair game, and I'd like Arti to come on and we'll handle the questions as best we can. Yes.
A technical question which you prompted when talking about audio or videotape. I was in an area contest and my club member wanted a videotape, and we were told by the judge that since it hadn't been discussed with all the contestants beforehand, it would be prohibited. Had we mentioned it at the very beginning and all the contestants agreed, we would have been prohibited. Is that what's in my contest?
I would answer that in this way. First, whether it happens at a contest or not, I encourage you to video this. Second, usually there will be no objection for an individual to video themselves by a member of the audience if it's okay with them.
And that was not the case. We were prohibited from using the equipment at all.
Well, I wasn't there. I wasn't the chief judge. So perhaps Diane would have had better wisdom to share
In
with
that
us.
case, it's a workaround. If the videotape is prohibited, have an audio recording. And that will help you, maybe not in the body gestures and the speech movement, but that will help you to a great extent in your voice, pitch, speed, pause, and these are equally important things in the speech. So any kind of recording which you do, because it's a kind of a self-evaluation. After the speech, you are evaluating yourself, and that will help you to take your speech to the next time. Is that the answer?
Yes.
When you're deciding how to cut things for your speech, I would assume you guys had several different versions of it that you had ready to go based on the audience. So, do you sort of stick to maybe 2 or 3? Like you used, for example, maybe more than 3, but I think it's 3 because the 3 times you can look around, and then the things that happen surrounding. So, do you try and stick to one number and always do it, or did you originally have 4, or how do you decide what you're going to cut? Say you have these 3, you practice, and you're so on.
Usually the speech is so well practiced that it doesn't vary at all.
Yeah.
And so there's not a question of what to cut. If things are going well, there are no changes. And it's a little bit like a wind-up doll. It should be so well memorized that it's in your muscle memory as well as your speaking memory.
I can add to Jim's point here that when you are memorizing, especially this happens in the humorous speech, because sometimes you have the audience and you get more enough, and so you are taking a little bit more pauses when you are getting those laughs as a response, and that increases the focus. So I would say that to yellow line, when you reach to the yellow line, then yes, you have 2 sections ready with you. That after this, which part I'm gonna go. And if you see that at green light you are not there, that's still fine. But if at yellow light you are not there, you have time to take portion of it. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Arti a little bit to share with the audience what it was like to, from the point of having written it to eventual competition. What was that like?
I'm glad you asked. So initially when Jim asked me to come up with the tragic moments or stories I was not like because nothing ever comes. So I decided to come with all the stories, and I decided to see fun and humor in it. That practiced on the vocal variety, speech, pitch, how exactly the voice sounds, body gestures, all these things we used to meet 1, 2 times, and then 3 times in a week to practice our speech. And Jim is so generous, he used to hear me every day with the same speech. And we used to find fun in those speech, and we used to find what we can improve next, how we can make it better. Mr. Paul White, who is not here today, he helped me to organize the club visits, and I have been to more than a dozen clubs to practice my speech. And I would say the feelings were not always the same. Some places, in the same set of audience, half of the audience I got very strong points, appreciation points. Few audience, they have the criticisms. I took both equally. And I had this Excel sheet, and I divided into appreciations, positive points, supporting points, what they like, and the criticism point or the area of improvement. And then I used to bring those points to Jim, and we used to sit together. And he always used to ask, okay, fine, these are their evaluations for you. And then I had to self-analyze myself. I would say, yeah, I think they are right. So can we incorporate those things as well? We incorporated like many things on many areas. Few body gestures we involved, and there was one moment when I was like turning to say how trouble turns to the triumph. When I give this body gesture in one of my practice speeches, people did not like it. Like, what was that? Why that way? You don't have to just say it. And I was like, yeah, okay, fine. So I removed those body gestures. So we incorporated things based on the evaluations, and we did not incorporate things which we did not find relevant to the speeches. So yeah, this was the one thing. And Jim, Paul, they really helped me a lot. Other than that, one of my friends, Lisa, with that girl, I used to visit the venues before the speech, before any contest, because the stage area plays a major role how you are covering the audience. And before every contest, we used to visit the venue, check the stage size, and then divide my speech into 3 sections, like A, B, C, and then I would give my 3 stories from those 3 sections. So yeah, that was my participation.
That's fantastic. I want to briefly mention, and with appreciation, Carolyn Butoff and also Tom Pfeiffer, who are members of GUTS who helped Arti along the way. And Tom, you have a question?
Yes, on the presentation of Arti's speech, how did you get the trouble to introduce it to the speech? Because I'm assuming that's one of those things that didn't come up in the original drafting of the speech, but it has a very key point. It is your anti-hero to say in the story, and I think it's a very central point that in turn brings us to the climax of each of the 3 stories. How did you bring that to the
Let me
speech?
ask you one question. Have you seen Fantasy?
Frankenstein, yes.
Yeah, so it came from there. And would you like to say more?
No, that's enough.
So we were sitting and I was just sharing, always trouble just finds me. Wherever I go, somehow I invite troubles. And Jim came up, have you seen that movie? You should see that movie. There is a trouble god in that movie. I was like, oh, that sounds awesome. So we incorporated that with trouble god.
I think one of the features that makes a speech very attractive is you enter into character. You are in character most of the time. And you were in your own self, and then you were talking about the woman. So you were moving in and out. And I think what's wonderful is you see your character change throughout the story. And seeing that's what I've also seen a very successful speech international level where one speaker is 2 people. And I'm intending to be 3 in mine. And I'm thinking there's got to be a skill in making clear diverse characters in one speech. Have you ever tried try that.
Both of our speeches are very similar in the other character. She has the doctor who looks at you, and I have Ranger Rick, who says, life jackets, you gotta have life jackets. And you've got the mom, Arti, and lift you alone for a minute. And so those are just phrases, a couple words, but you get more feeling for the interaction. We're up against the red. Christine, thanks for having us, and we'll return to the